This video is going to be about solving two-step equations in algebra in one variable. And we'll go through 5 examples as I've laid out here, and I'll show you one method that you can use to solve these. But before I do that, real quick, I'm going to show you where you can, the screen on the left, where you can access that web page. So if you go to the Moodle page for Algebra 1A, which is where I am right now, and currently you have to scroll down to the section labeled Multi-Step Equations, and under there it is currently under Quizzes, Two-Step Equations Made by Kevin. If you click on that, you'll get a pop-up window, and you can choose how many questions you want, and when you're ready, when you've got the number you want, get new problems, and it'll give you however many equations you asked for. You can resize that window, and then you can work through the problems on paper, or maybe in your head, depending on how good you are. And when you get an answer, you could type it into the box. I'm just going to type a few random answers. And then when you've got them all answered, or as many as you want to do, you can click on Show Answers, and next to the box it'll display the actual value of the variable. So I was just guessing, so I was wrong, but I was just guessing there. For this video, I kind of had pre-selected some equations that I'm going to solve for you here, and I'm going to go through each one step by step. So just up at the top here of our display, I guess, just some things to remind you of. For these two-step equations, you know that you can do a two-step equation if there are no parentheses and the variable is on only one side of the equal sign. So every single one of those, that's what we have. No parentheses, variables only on one side of the equal sign. And then just some tips. There's more than one way to solve these, but typically I find that it's easier to add or subtract as your first step, and then multiply or divide excuse me, as your second step. It's not that you have to do it that way, but it's just most people are prone to mistakes if they try and multiply or divide first when they try and solve here. And just a good rule of thumb here to help you make sure that you're solving correctly, to split up your equal sign with a vertical line, so that when we take the steps that we take, we always do it on the left side of the equal sign and the right side, or the left side of the line we drew and the right side of the line that we drew. So here for number 1, we've got negative 10 plus c divided by 4, and so we said we're going to try and add or subtract first. So getting rid of this negative 10, I can add or subtract, and in this case I can add 10 on both sides. So just remembering that we always have to do, whatever we do, we have to balance the equation, keep the left side equal to the right side. But here when we add 10, what that accomplishes is that the negative 10 that we were adding with originally cancels with the positive 10 that we're adding. So as a result, on the left side of the equal sign, we're just left with positive c over 4, which we can just say c over 4. If it was a negative, we would need to keep the negative. If it was a minus, we would need to keep the minus. But then on the right side, we had 12. Now we're going to add 10. We're at 22. And we've gotten rid of one of our numbers. We got rid of the negative 10 we originally had. And now we want to cancel the 4. 4 is dividing. We're dividing by 4 right now. So to cancel that, we can do the opposite. We can multiply by 4. So multiplying by 4 will cancel division by 4, and then again we have to do it on both sides to balance the equation. But now what we've accomplished on the left side, when we take our variable c and we both divide by 4 and multiply by 4, that cancels. So we're left with c on the left side. So multiplying 22 by 4 on the right side gives us c equals 88, and that would be our answer. So I'm going to put that in a box. But now, even though I have my answer, right here we have, as always, check your answer. So this is, as I often say, there's no excuse not to do this. Okay, so clean that answer up a little bit here. But now our check step, to make sure that we're not making any mistakes here, we're going to take the original equation and we're going to put in our value for the variable. 88 will go in place of c. Remember, everything else stays the same, at least initially. Alright, and so now we just have to evaluate the left side of the equation. We can again split up the left side and the right side. The right side is just going to be 12, and it's just going to stay 12 as we work down. but on the left side we've got numbers and operations that we can perform. So to break it down by the order of operations, we're going to divide before we add. So we got 88 divided by 4 is 22. We still got our negative 10 with the addition. We still got 12 on the right side. And now we can do this addition. And when we do the addition, negative 10 plus 22, we get 12 equals 12. So feels good. Our answer, that C is 88, seems like a good answer. For problem number 2, again, we want to focus on the side that has the variable. We have a negative that we need to get rid of, and we have a minus 10 that we need to get rid of. So again, easier to add or subtract first. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 10 on both sides. So again, the reason for doing that is that when we add 10, and we already have a minus 10, these are going to cancel. So whatever number we had for negative p, when you subtract 10, you add 10, that cancels. So negative p equals negative 8. Now one thing that might be helpful is to think of this as negative 1p instead of negative p. So when we think of it as negative 1p, then we can say it's negative 1 times p, and we can cancel that multiplication using division. So we have the multiplication with negative 1 would be canceled using division with negative 1, leaving us with just our variable p, which is what we wanted, and then we balance by dividing on the other side. Just like we divided on the left by negative 1, we divide by negative 1 on the right. So that gives us our answer, that p is equal to positive 8, and now we can check that answer. So our original equation, we're going to replace our variable p with 8, and we're going to see if this works out. So now notice this negative, this is a tricky one here sometimes, but if p had been negative, this would be negative, like if we came out with negative 8, this would be negative 8. Because you got the negative from the equation, and then if p was negative, we'd have a negative from the variable. Turns out p is positive, so negative from the equation, then just a positive 8. But that can be a tricky one. And so we put that in, and there's really only one operation to do here, just negative 8 minus 18 on the left. And that does indeed work out to say negative 18 equals negative 18, which is true. Remember when we check, that's what we want to get. We want to get a true, universally true statement. The number on the left is equal to the number on the right. So my answer of p equals 8, I feel very good about that. Okay, I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker with 3, 4, and 5. So looking at number 3, 6v minus 8, we're going to cancel the minus 8 with a plus 8, and we'll plus 8 on both sides, add 8 on both sides. Our plus 8 is going to cancel with the minus 8 that we have. That's why we did that. So now our equation becomes 6v equals negative 6. That's 6 times v, so we'll cancel the multiplication using division, divide by 6. And the reason we divide by 6 is because when we have multiplication by 6 and division by 6, those cancel, leaving us with v on the left and negative 6 divided by 6. So we get our answer that v is negative 1, and now just to check this. So take the original equation, 6v minus 8 equals negative 14, and we'll put in our value for v. And now we can calculate, so 6 times negative 1, which would be negative 6. Negative 6 minus 8, and then we can do that subtraction. And we get a true statement there, that negative 14 is indeed equal to negative 14. The left side really did turn out to be equal to the right side, so we feel good about that answer of v equals negative 1. Moving on to number 4 here, negative 2 minus k equals 6. If we add 2 on both sides, that'll cancel the negative 2 that's being added or subtracted with the variable. So that leaves us with our negative k, very important there that you keep that negative or that minus. So we'd get negative k equals 8, and again, just like we saw in number 2, it might be helpful to think of negative k as negative 1k, so that we have multiplication by negative 1, and we can cancel it with division by negative 1. When we perform that division, it cancels the multiplication with the same number, leaving us just with the variable. And then our answer coming on the right side, when we do 8 divided by negative 1, we get negative 8 here. So the only other thing for us to do is to check this answer. So So here, this is what I was talking about on number 2, checking the answer where you've got a minus or a negative in front of your variable. And if your variable has a negative, it'll be minus -8. So it'll be -2 minus -8. Again, that's a very common mistake, that students merge these and it just becomes -2 minus 8, which is not correct. -2 minus -8. And then that would be like a chop-chop, -2 plus +8, or you could do that on a calculator, but either way, you wind up getting 6 equals 6, which is true, so I feel good about that answer, that k equals -8. All right, one more. Number 5 here, we finally get to a problem where the variable is on the right side, but remember, don't let the 4 on the left fool you. I have no problem with the 4 on the left. We gotta get rid of the 2 on the right and the 6 on the right. So we said easier to add or subtract first. So that +6, I'm gonna cancel that. I'm gonna subtract 6. So when we subtract 6 on the right, we've got the 2c plus 6 minus 6. The +6 and the -6 cancel. And then I balance by subtracting 6 on the left. So we get -2 equals 2c, and now I cancel the multiplication with 2 by dividing both sides by 2. Our multiplication and division with 2 over here cancels, leaving us with the variable. And here we come up with -1 again is equal to our variable c. So the only thing left to do here is to check. And so there's the quick check step there, but that works. So last thing I'm going to do, the fun part perhaps, is I'm going to come over to the web page here and I'm going to type in these 5 answers that we got, and then we'll click on show answers and we'll see if the website agrees. Hopefully. And the last one, C was equal to -1. Alright, so show answers, 88, 8, -1, -8, and -1. Alright, so we got them all. So again, remember those steps. This is for 2-step equations, no parentheses, variables on only one side. Probably want to add or subtract first as your first step. Number 1, we added 10, 2, we added 10, 3, we added 8, 4, we added 2, 5, we subtracted 6, and then our second step was either multiply or divide. And then we always check their answer and make sure we got a universally true statement, 12 equals 12, -18 equals -18, the number on the left equals the number on the right, so that we feel good about that answer. Get lots of practice.